Hey guys, Don here. Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery, where we're trying to bring your practice to the $1 million mark and beyond in personal production for your podiatry clinic. I'm Don Pelto, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to compensate, or just some suggestions for compensation of doctors. I was talking to one of my WhatsApp mastermind group members, and he had a kind of an interesting question, and I think it would benefit everyone. So the question is, he has an associate that is going to not joining right now as a partner, but wants to kind of keep that associate and pay them properly, pay them so they'll stay. And so we'll talk about a couple of the scenarios we're going through. So one of his scenarios was to pay them 35%, or after they. There's a lot of different complicated scenarios, but the one that seems the most elegant to me is either paying 35% and then taking stuff away, or paying 30% including the other stuff. So let me talk about both of those. So the 35% is what a lot of the big places do. These would be a lot of these venture capital. They'll pay you 35% of what your production is, and they'll kind of help you to produce more. Whether or not they take away, I'm not sure, but I know one way is you pay 35% of what they produce, and then you take away, for example, your insurance costs, your malpractice costs, your other types of expenses that come out of that. So that would be deducted from that. So that's one way. And then you would also deduct, for example, maybe orthotics. Like if an orthotics costs $100 and you get paid $600, so you might deduct that, or AFOs, or Qutenza, or grafts, or things like that. So that's kind of one way of doing it. I think it's a little bit complex in terms of the calculations. That's just my personal opinion. The other way of doing it would be a straight 30%. That's what we do, straight 30% for the associates. And we do cut out a couple of things, but we pay everything. So we pay their insurance, we pay their malpractice, we pay everything that they need, all their CME, we pay the classes. But then we do take out certain things that we just don't think it's fair. For example, if you're going to do a Qutenza and you actually have to buy it and bill it, that's what it's called. So those are very expensive, and why would they get 30% on that if they're not really doing anything for that big amount? You would give them the actual nerve destruction fee, which is like $400, but you wouldn't give them the $4,000 for the Qutenza. And the same thing for a graft, right? A graft might be very expensive, but you're not gonna pay them. I've thought about kind of an objective way of looking at this. Would be like a 30%, kind of a 30% type of a thing. If it's more than 30% of the cost, you might want to consider cutting it out. For us, we don't cut out orthotics because orthotics cost $100 or $120, and then we get $600 for that. It's not the 30%. But like other things, I could understand. But we don't do it for every single DME item, though, for night splints and stuff like that, just because it's really kind of complex to figure out. And I've heard some other doctors that are in my group. They said, I just always felt like I was being taken advantage of with that method of doing it. So we kind of were talking a little bit about that, and because of this, I put together a calculation, kind of a calculator on Excel. And then when I made one, I made a whole bunch of other ones on how to calculate. I've always wanted to do this. I never knew how to do it, and I don't know if you can guess how I did it, but I'll tell you in a second. But I made a calculator for how to determine if Swift is a good moneymaker, if Shockwave is a good moneymaker, if having a scribe is a good moneymaker. So I did all these. So let me tell you how I did it. Okay, drum roll. I asked AI. So I asked AI, I said, hey, how do you make an Excel spreadsheet to determine the value of a new technology that you're going to implement into the practice? And then when it didn't really make sense, I said, can you please simplify this and tell me exactly where I'm going to post these numbers and how to do these calculations? And then after I did it the second time, it worked. So one thing with AI is sometimes you have to ask them, and it just assumes you have a greater knowledge of it than I really did for using Excel or Google Sheets. And so I was able to make this. So you can just ask Google how to do it. You may be able to find one, but they're kind of specific type of things, but you might be able to find one. Or if you want to get mine, you can just email me, Don, at podiatrypracticemastery.com and just send me, hey, Don, send me that spreadsheet for calculating stuff. So I did make this for one of my members, and so, but if it's helpful to him, it might be helpful to you all as well. In there, it's including a couple of different ways of paying, whether it be percentage or when you're deducting things. But ultimately, when it all comes down to the whole goal of this, my $1 million club, is that if we could get doctors, let's say you're earning 30%, and if you can produce $80,000 per month, that's my goal for people, because that'll get you about the $1 million mark. Actually producing $80,000 per month, $1 million in production. Now, you're probably not going to get that take home, right? But that's how much you're going to be producing. And to do that, I always say it's about $200 per visit. So, like, I keep it kind of simple. The calculations, 20 visits a day, and then that would be 5 days a week. So that's 200, and then, 20 visits, 5 days. That would be 200. 100, and then times 200, and anyway, it's going to end up to be about $80,000 per month. Sorry about that. I'm not thinking right now, but I have the calculator that can help you. That's what the magic number is. And so he was asking, well, how? So this doctor, they want to be, they want to have 2 weeks. They want 2 weeks off. Okay, they want 8 weeks of like maternity or paternity leave. And then they want to earn so much, like they want to earn $200,000 or $160,000. So if you just put that stuff in this little calculator, it'll figure out how many patients they need to see, or it assumes a certain amount that you're seeing, and how much you need to produce per patient. So if you earn less per patient, you're going to have to see more patients. It's obvious. So that's why my goal is always to help doctors to earn more per visit or reduce those lower value patients that are in your practice. But this is kind of an interesting way of doing it. If you want to help a doctor, and the doctor can also see, and then you can see like each month where you're at. Now, for this person, this doctor wasn't interested in making, right? Wasn't wanting to get to the $1 million mark. They were just kind of wanting to produce their 160 to 180,000. So, if you think about it, if they're producing like in a year, let's say 600,000, okay, and that's $180,000. Kind of at 30%. So that's a pretty good salary. So 600,000 is a lot easier to produce, and so you're not going to need to see as many patients. You're not going to have to produce as much per patient. But in my opinion, it's better to see less patients and earn more per patient than it is to see just a boatload of patients for a lower amount. Anyway, those are the thoughts. If you guys want my little calculator, send me an email, don@podiatrypracticemastery.com. Happy to send that over to you. You might be able to find it on the website, but sometimes it's not all that clear because there's a lot of stuff there. Okay. Once again, hope you're enjoying this. Let me know your feedback, and if you like this, please like it on the wherever you're listening to it, whether it be iTunes or something else. Thanks.